Hi diddly ho, neighborinos! The Simpsons is 30 years old, and it's available on Disney+. So we're gonna throw it a bit of a party. This 3-decade streak of comedic greatness, accomplished in prime time no less, puts every other cartoon to shame. And since the residents of Springfield have appeared uninterrupted, outlasting even the animated adventures of some of America's favorite superheroes, let's recognize what makes these characters so extraordinary. Join ScreenRant as we go through a handful of the best times that the Simpsons characters donned masks, wore capes, assumed alter egos, and crossed paths with their doubles, all in the unpredictable town of Springfield.
I thought we were quiet riot.
It says here we're right.
The most famous of the Cape Crusaders, in Springfield at least, is Bart Man. The Bart Man was originally a dance from a 1991 episode, where Bart takes over a school play and slings rap lyrics comparing the Bart to being bad like Michael Jackson. It was very early 90s. Bart later donned a Batman-inspired costume as Bart Man, with the ability to climb walls and glide through the air. He appeared in the episode 3 Men in a Comic Book when he needed to wear a costume to gain entry to a convention. Then in Revenge is a Dish Best Served 3 Times, Bart and his parents leave the Gotham City Opera House only to be mugged by Snake Jailbird. In this parody of Bruce Wayne's backstory, Homer and Marge meet their ends. Homer's last words are, "Avenge me," in flamboyant, impractical fashion. If only we could get our own full-length Bart Man movie. Guy Incognito isn't all that he appears to be. Guy looks exactly like Homer Simpson in disguise, but he isn't the real thing. Just a poor sap who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. When Guy was first introduced in the 11th episode of Season 6, Fear of Flying, he enters Moe's Tavern looking exactly like the Simpsons family patriarch, except he speaks in an over-the-top upper crust accent, wears a top hat and a suit, and has a curly mustache. Moe immediately thinks that Guy is Homer in disguise and has no patience for the ruse. Mr. Incognito gets thrown onto the doorstep, where the actual Homer Simpson passes by. Homer is confused by Guy's matching appearance, but then, in true Homer fashion, he gets distracted by a toy poodle and chases after the tiny dog. Not all of these alter egos are costume related. In the episode Large Marge, Homer tried competing with Bart's self-appointed nickname, El Bardo. Homer spray painted his own nickname onto the side of a building, El Homo. He didn't necessarily understand the connotation of the word until a Latino man, displaying some stereotypical characteristics, approached him. He commended Homer for his courage, and when Homer realized what his nickname was insinuating, he panicked. Look, Large Marge was released back in the less enlightened times of 2002. El Homo returned in the 26th season episode entitled Bart's New Friend. While Bart and Homer bond, we see Bart spray painted a wall with the text, El Bardo was here. In response, Homer tags the wall with Homo 2. Homer gets the chance to put on a superhero costume in season 15. During the episode called Simple Simpson, Chief Wiggum threatened that Homer would be arrested if he assaulted another Springfield resident. So when Rich Texan insulted Lisa at the county fair, Homer took on the alias of Pie Man. As the Pie Man, Homer could throw a pie in Rich Texan's face without Wiggum knowing who he really was. Homer, as Pie Man, went on to fight Springfield's criminals, vigilante style. When Mr. Burns got wind of Pie's secret identity, he blackmailed Homer into pieing his enemies. But Homer couldn't bring himself to pie the Dalai Lama as Mr. Burns requested. He then revealed himself and returned to a normal life. But that doesn't mean that Pie Man is gone for good. The hero later returned in The Blue and the Gray, How I Wet Your Mother, and Bart's New Friend. In the season 5 episode Cape Fear, the whole Simpson family takes on the alias of the Thompsons. This episode is a parody of the Scorsese remake of the same name, except here, the Simpsons hide out at Terror Lake as part of a witness relocation program after a recently freed Sideshow Bob sends threats to Bart. The fake surname doesn't work on Sideshow Bob though, as he'd followed them all the way to Terror Lake. Apparently, when the original cut for the episode was shorter than the usual network requirement, additions were made. For the sequence where Sideshow Bob steps on a rake a total of 9 times, he was originally only supposed to step on it once. But once the episode needed an increased runtime, the production team decided to stretch it out for laughs. Matt Groening originally opposed cheap jokes like this, but he's since warmed to this cult classic episode. We're gonna take a second to step away from all the Simpson-y goodness to just remind you to subscribe to ScreenRant. Also click that little bell thingy if you don't mind. If you're watching this on mobile, be sure to turn on your notifications in your app settings so that you can actually be notified. Every little bit helps us, and in return you get some awesome content. Seems like a win-win to us. In the season 10 episode Homer to the Max, Homer enjoys some extra popularity when a hip character on a new TV show called Police Cops shares his name. This all goes downhill when the network forces Police Cops to make some changes, and its Homer Simpson character becomes a Gomer Pyle-style doofus. In order to escape the shame of being associated with a village idiot on TV, Springfield's Homer decides to change his name to Max Power. While Homer doesn't change all that much, his new name gets him an invite to Trent Steele's exclusive garden party, where Homer and Marge rub elbows with the rich and famous, avoid Bill Clinton's advances, and escape Lorne Michaels altogether. They then join Ed Begley Jr. in protesting the destruction of a redwood forest. While every episode of The Simpsons gets pretty weird and kinda wild, there's a certain order to the reality of Springfield. Things get really crazy every Halloween. For the annual Treehouse of Horror, when genres are parodied, characters meet gruesome demises, and nightmares come true. The 10th Treehouse of Horror features a superhero plot in which Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl must come to terms with their powers and protect Springfield. Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl, aka Bart and Lisa, gained their powers after a mishap with an X-ray machine. Chief Wiggum had been X-raying the children's bag of Halloween candy to make sure that they were safe for consumption. When his X-ray machine exploded, the beams of radiation hit Bart and Lisa, giving them the ability to, stretch and clobber. Armin Tamzarian just might be one of the most controversial alter egos in Simpsons history, not only among Springfield's residents, but also among the fanbase. In the season 9 episode, The Principal and the Pauper, it's revealed that Armin Tamzarian is Principal Skinner's real name. While younger Tamzarian was away at war, his commanding sergeant, the real Seymour Skinner, was presumed lost in battle. Tamzarian then took over Skinner's identity, moving back to Springfield and convincing the senile Agnes that he was, in fact, her son. By the end of the episode, Judge Schneider rules that no one will mention this extreme bit of backstory ever again. But the damage to the Simpsons fanbase was already done. Some diehard fans believe this plot point betrays everything we thought we knew about Skinner. And while shows like Mad Men have made these types of plot twists work, some Simpsonites believe that the show never really recovered from this blunder. The Collector is basically the comic book guy in a mask, with a large C on his chest. He's also, though, Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl's arch nemesis, first introduced in the same Treehouse of Horror episode where we met Bart and Lisa's alter egos. Here, the Collector kidnaps Lucy Lawless from a comic book convention and keeps her in his lair, along with Yasmin Bleeth, Tom Baker, and a lot of memorabilia. Don't worry though, Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl do come to the rescue. To defend himself, the Collector pulls out a double-bladed lightsaber, inspired by Darth Maul in the recently released Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. When Lucy Lawless notes that the lightsaber, now unwrapped from its package, has lost its value, the Collector jumps into a vat of lucite to end his misery. He may look exactly like Ned Flanders, but Jose Flanders is really just a relative from South America. He appears in the 7th season episode Lisa the Vegetarian, when Ned holds a family reunion. There we hear him giving his South American spin on a common Flanderism, saying, "Buenos ding dong diddly dias, senor." Ned Flanders himself may seem like the ideal husband and father, but he has a darker side as well. While visiting Las Vegas, Flanders lost his self-control, went on a bender, and married a cocktail waitress. All while his poor wife Maud was at home, alive and well. While Mr. Burns might seem brittle and frail, the man still runs his company with an iron fist. In the season 24 episode Dark Knight Court, Burns is inspired to become a superhero himself. He dons a costume that looks strikingly similar to Batman, but he takes on a far more appropriate name of Fruit Batman, with Smithers as a sidekick named Kid Sourpuss. They decide to bring justice to Springfield, but their adventures end up featuring Smithers paying off people to serve as quote-unquote villains in Mr. Burns' comic book fantasy. In his first adventure, for example, Smithers paid Snake and Apu to allow Fruit Batman to stop a holdup in progress at the Quickie Mart. In one season 7 episode, we get 2 creepy blasts from the past. Bart and Lisa learn that the idea for Itchy and Scratchy was probably stolen from Chester Lampwick. The homeless Lampwick even has an old film reel for a short titled Itchy the Lucky Mouse in Manhattan Madness, which proves his point. While the Simpson siblings try to help Chester receive credit for his plagiarized ideas, their efforts get Itchy and Scratchy canceled. Bart and Lisa then have to try to save their favorite show from certain doom, but their plans are thwarted when two children named Lester and Eliza beat them to it. Lester and Eliza look unsettlingly similar to Bart and Lisa, and that's probably because their animated appearance is very close to how Bart and Lisa looked when The Simpsons first came on the air. This inside joke is topped off by Bart noting how strange it is that he and Lisa didn't solve the problems of the episode. It was their shifty-eyed doppelgängers who did it for them. How about Rory Bellows? You might think he's just your average longshoreman, but he is, in fact, Krusty the Clown in disguise. This all occurs in the Season 7 episode Bart the Fink. Here, the Simpsons each inherit $100. Bart uses his money to pay for an autograph from Krusty. Yet when Krusty deposits Bart's payment into an illegal account in the Cayman Islands, the IRS punishes Krusty and seizes his assets. Krusty then fakes his own demise and becomes Rory Bellows. Bart and Lisa do wind up talking Krusty into returning to his former identity, and then Krusty decides to take out a large insurance policy on Bellows. That explains how he'll be able to make a bunch of cash and get away with becoming Krusty again? It all makes sense within the context of the episode. Springfield citizens have a lot of pride for the founder of their town, Jebediah Springfield. And even though we may not know exactly where Springfield is located, we do know that Jebediah headed westward in search of land to form what he believed would be New Sodom. After misinterpreting a Bible verse, he thought this would be a good thing. And while a statue commemorating Jebediah's fight with a bear displays Springfield's pride for their founder, Lisa discovered that Jebediah was actually Hans Springfield, a brutal pirate and enemy of George Washington. He even tried to bring about George Washington's demise, but the first president was able to escape Jebediah in one piece. Jebediah's confession, linking his identity to Hans, was written on a piece of a portrait of George Washington, a painting that's famously missing a portion in real life. In one of Homer's more oblivious moments, and yeah, there are a lot of them, he decides to take on the identity of Nicky Blue Pants Alto Saxophone. It's never a good idea to take on a fake name with the word phony in it, but he needs it when he goes undercover for the FBI in the season 22 episode Donnie Fatso. There he gets involved with the Springfield Mafia in The Simpsons' take on Donnie Brasco. This episode is particularly of note because it's the last time that we heard Joe Montana play classic character Fat Tony. It's also the introduction of Montana's turn as Fit Tony, who's Fat Tony's slim cousin. After Fat Tony meets his demise, Fit Tony gains weight, becoming Fit Fat Tony and ultimately the new Fat Tony. Since this other Fat Tony is voiced by the same actor and has the same name, it's almost as if we can just pretend this episode was a figment of our imaginations. In Season 17's Girls Just Wanna Have Sums, Lisa dresses like a boy and experiences how the other half lives, or at least how boys get through life at Springfield Elementary. She assumes the identity of Jake Boy Man, when the boys and girls of Springfield Elementary are split up. Principal Skinner made this drastic decision in reaction to criticisms over his beliefs that girls aren't cut out for mathematics. When Lisa gets fed up with her girls-only math class, which doesn't seem to actually teach her anything, she becomes Jake Boyman. Jake gets called the unflattering nickname of Toilet because the toilet paper seen stuck to his shoe and later gets beaten up by Nelson. Bart then discovers Lisa's ruse and decides to help her be a more convincing male. It's a secret that brings the siblings closer together, at least for that episode. In the Season 21 episode, The Bob Next Door, Sideshow Bob returns, this time with a new face. Sideshow Bob, played by returning guest star Kelsey Grammer, has been locked away in prison all of this time. But in an elaborate scheme, Bob decides to swap faces with his cellmate, Walt Warren. Walt, voiced by Hank Azaria doing his best Jimmy Stewart impression, gets paroled. But after the surgery, Sideshow Bob is able to get out of the slammer by wearing Walt's face. The villain may look different, but we still have all the references that make Sideshow Bob episodes memorable, including highbrow nods to classic operettas and some homages to Kelsey Grammer's other work in film and TV. The Season 4 finale, Krusty Gets Cancelled, puts Krusty in a tight spot. There's a new primo children's entertainer in town, and it's a ventriloquist dummy named Gabbo. Krusty struggles in the ratings, and even Itchy and Scratchy shorts move over to the wildly popular Gabbo show. Desperate, Krusty starts running a cheap knockoff of Itchy and Scratchy called Worker and Parasite. This cat and mouse cartoon originally aired in the Soviet bloc in 1959. While the cat and mouse appear to antagonize each other, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on in the short. After he plays it on an episode of his show, even Krusty is confused. He then notices that his studio's emptied out. Worker and Parasite may be the closest thing to Itchy and Scratchy that mid-20th century Eastern Europe has to offer, but it's not really enough to save Krusty. So maybe you noticed some of the Simpsons alter egos that we might have missed. Let us know in the comment section below if we did. And stay tuned to ScreenRant for more videos like this one. We'll keep churning them out as long as Graining and Company keep giving us new things to make videos about, even if it lasts for another 30 years. See you next time on ScreenRant. Same Bart time, same Bart channel.